All right, welcome back to the workshop. We're at the end of February. Very lovely Saturday afternoon. My car, this car, said 25 and a half degrees Celsius on the way over. Upper 70, 78 degrees, I think, for Americans like me. So really nice out. Surprisingly warm for the time of the year, but can't complain. Car's been driving great. We are about 500 miles post engine and trans swap. Had some exhaust work done. I'm not thrilled with it because it's really quiet. Muffler shop suggested we just use the original wagon muffler because he didn't think anything he could do would be better from a quality standpoint. So I'm kind of on the hunt maybe for a real E55 wagon muffler, which is not easy to find, although I do have a line on one. Not quite sure on the cost yet. Or maybe Super Sprint. Super Sprint's got a sale going on. Tariffs have just been dropped, maybe, so maybe it's time to jump on something like that and do at least the rear muffler. So today, so what's next? Brakes and suspension, AMG bumpers and side skirts. The rear bumper, I don't have a wagon bumper, of course, but the rear bumper is trash, so it needs to be repainted. Wearing my Blip Shift E55, although it's a 211 t-shirt, but just came this week. The right idea. And then, so after that, it definitely needs some paintless dent repair. I gave it a wash and a spray wax last night, and it surprisingly cleaned up pretty nicely, but it really needs, I really need to spend a day and polish out the paint, and I think it'll come out pretty good. And then, I've got the E55's front seats over there. They're pretty beat up. The seats in this car aren't bad, but it's just black, and it's kind of boring. So I was thinking maybe this is long term down the road, rebuild the E55 seats because the padding is kind of beat up, reupholster, maybe do some sort of two-tone thing like was optional on these, but maybe something a little different to make it a little bit more interesting. But that's down the road. The goal for today, or maybe today and tomorrow, I've got everything off the parts car for the front end. So I've got the springs, I've got the shocks, I've got the brakes. It's already got the sway bar. So if I could do spring, shocks, brakes, and maybe a brake fluid flush, I'd be pretty happy. The brakes are pretty bad. Even when the car was just a stock V6 car, the brakes were pretty bad. And I think it's just down to pad choice. My friend who owned the car before, was not really an enthusiast from a driving standpoint. It's got something that doesn't dust at all because I've put 500 miles on it and the wheels don't look like any. They're not dirty, which is nice, but they don't stop very well. And so get the front brakes done, and then maybe if there's time this weekend, I'll start getting the rear stuff off of the parts car. The brakes, the bigger sway bar. I'm not sure if springs are compatible between a sedan and a wagon. If they are, maybe I'll see if the E55 sedan springs will work on this. Otherwise, I may look and see if I can actually get just E55 wagon rear springs and just keep I want it to ride nicely. It's sitting a little lower than it was as a V6 because of the extra weight. But if it came down just a little bit more, that'd be great. I've got over here in my pile of parts a set of the thinnest spring pads for front and rear. These are new. I've also got the spring pads that came off of the E55. Mercedes, like a lot of German makers, they put little notches on there, or that says dots on it. And the E55 stock were 3, and they come 1, 2, 3, 4, 5, maybe 6. But the difference is almost a couple of inches of thickness between the thinnest and the thinnest. So you really can adjust the ride height and fine tune things. So the E55 was a 3 puck spring pad. Those are 1. I don't know what's on this car, so we'll see when it comes apart. And my initial thought was I'm probably just going to go with the thinnest ones to bring the car down the most. And then if it's too low, I could always put thicker ones in. The E55 ride height was okay. It was about where this car is sitting right now. It wouldn't kill me if it were just a little bit lower. And then, so we'll get the front end done hopefully this weekend. Maybe if time, start getting parts off the rear of the other car. I'm thinking really the more that I drive the car, the more I'm leaning towards just keeping the shorter diff ratio from the wagon, V6 wagon with this engine. It's a 307 versus a 283, I think, 282. Not a big difference, but it drives well. So that's where we are now. Let's kind of get things apart. It's kind of hot, so I'm wasting a little time while it cools down because I drove it over here. I've been driving it to work. So we'll get things apart and we'll kind of jump in and start swapping things. Okay. All right, so we're ready to go here. Don't let my dirty appearance fool you. I have not already done the other side just to make sure it all went smoothly. So we've got the stock 320 brakes here. I got the parts from the E55 there. We're going to start, get the caliper off, disc, shock, spring. I'm going to spray some oil on the brake line to make sure that brake's free. And we will assembly is reverse. Got a spring compressor, which are always scary, so stay tuned for that. And let's kind of get at it here. All right, so I usually will start by breaking the screw that holds the disc on, just to make sure that's not going to be an issue later. And then, let's see, these are different than the other car. Something to pry with here. I want to get this spring that holds the anti-rattle spring for the brake pads. Of course, there's no little caps to cover the bolts for the caliper retaining bolts. I have them off of the parts car, so we will be putting those on. Let's see, I don't think we need that. Loosen the pads a little bit. Clip some of this stuff just so it can move around a little better. Brake pads. Let's pull the wear sensor out. So we're not reusing any of the hoses or anything, so I'm not too worried about letting the brake caliper dangle. There's a grommet here that the brake caliper hose, or the brake hose, runs through, so I'm going to just knock that through the hole. I already have one on the other caliper from the E55. And then I want to get this connector for the wear sensor off of this caliper and reuse it on the other caliper. I'd saved it from the other car, but the wiring goes up in here and it's kind of a pain to get to. So easier just to unbolt this, clean it off a little bit, let that dangle in the background. Okay. So I'm going to leave this here for now. Next we want to get this bracket for caliper retainer. Oddly, it's an 18 millimeter bolt. Most things are 17s or 19. And it's tight, so. Using Joe's detailing lights, which don't help when I'm standing in front of them. It'd probably be easier if I got this caliper totally out of the way. Then I left my little caps for the brake hoses at home, so I'm gonna have brake fluid dripping. Maybe I'll do it anyway. Let's see. Let's get a little oil on there. A little bit of a mess. Let's see. Okay. loose. Okay. Remove the disc. Discs are in decent shape. Move all this to the garbage side. Try to save that wear sensor because this can come in handy. What I learned on the other side is this little bump gets in the way with the bigger disc. It is a heat shield around the ball joint, but there is a little bit of space. So a couple of taps should help. All right, now let's do the shock. And again, standing in front of the light doesn't help. Let's get the bottom nut off and we'll get the shock out of the way. This is a 16. There we go. Everybody's favorite part, spring compressor. Okay, we got the spring compressor basically as high on the top and as low on the bottom as I can get it, because this is the stock springs are pretty long. And now this is a 19. Should have over here somewhere. I've already used it. Okay, That was good. I was not all the way engaged on the bottom half. I'm going to move this up a little bit to make sure I get it locked in better. So that should be in there. Compressor slipped a little bit. It's locked in though. Let's continue and see if that's going to work. Yes, this is too long down there. The other side, I was able to slip the spring pad out first, which took like an inch off the spring. I can also crank down the compressor a little further. I just need the extension on here. There we go. Let's get this thing off. The wagon springs are 2 dot. The stock E55 springs were 3, and I bought 1. So there's 1 versus 2, 1 dot or 1 bump or whatever you want to call them. So thinner, so it'll lower the front of the car a little bit. I did doing the same for the rear once I get to that point. But it's good to have these other ones too. Now I've got, here's the other one. Here's the E55 had a 3 bump, thicker still, interestingly. So we can kind of fine tune the ride height if it doesn't end up where we want it. Let's see. Why don't we get the other spring in, then we'll do the caliper. Clean this all up. All right, we have our bomb, aka spring in the compressor here, where the dirt that's in the perch. The E55 springs slip in a lot easier because they're just a little bit shorter to begin with. So that's not much of as much wrestling as the other one was. There we go. This lined up. All right, so that's good. That's the scary part, so that's over. pause and put this away since we're done with it for right now. All right, next up, let's get the brake caliper out of here. Where are my wrenches? There they are. 11mm flare wrench for the brake line. This is where living in California pays off because it comes right off. Get a rag to catch the leaking brake fluid that is going to come out. So I was looking at home for my brake bleeder and I couldn't find it, so I assume it must be at the shop. And I'm looking at the shop and I can't find it, so I'm hoping it's at home and just not where I thought it would be. So that's going to be a necessary component to finish this, which we'll probably need tomorrow. There we go. Get the old caliper out. Set that there for now. Shit, that wasn't in there. That was. All right. Clean that. This is really, well, I like this degreaser a lot. No promotion here, but stuff works well. Dries without residue. Tried to buy some on Amazon, something different came. I was really disappointed. Looked like it was the same bottle too, but it was more of a foaming product, so definitely not this. So let's find our wire brushes here. I wish I brought my electric wire wheel drill, but I forgot. It's the problem with doing things in different spots and not having tools everywhere. Normally, I wouldn't be a proponent of putting used brake parts on a car, but when I bought the E55 about 4 years ago, 5 years ago, it needed front brakes. I can't remember if I did the rears or not. So these have about 25,000 miles on them, and they're in good shape, other than a little bit of surface corrosion, which will clean up pretty easily. These are floating rotors. I had bought SM something, which is a German manufacturer who is apparently the OEM supplier. And this side has no markings on them. The other side actually is stamped AMG. So sometimes you get lucky, I guess. Yeah, this side's got nothing at all on them. They both came in the same boxes, interestingly. A lot of that corrosion just comes off with some degreaser. It's not really, just kind of on the surface. medical device tables make handy project tables. Got a new piece of equipment in the office. This was a table that was holding the old piece of equipment, and the new equipment comes with a table. You can't say, just keep the table and don't charge me $1,500. They're going to charge you the money, and they're going to give you the table, so may as well take the old one. The sales rep said, hey, actually, if you want another table, I've got a couple of these in my garage, because people always want to get rid of their old tables, because what are you going to do with this in an office? You have limited space. I've got like 3 or 4 of these here, different sizes, and they're all electric. They go up and down. They'll easily hold a couple hundred pounds. So very handy. Over here. Buzz this on. Out there for now. Get the extension. All right. All right. On. Set this other brake pad in. Get these. Loosen up the pads a little bit here. These are 2 piston calipers. Pistons are on the inside. That's better. Pretty much the same as BMW brakes of the day. Okay. Slug this down with this. Okay. Here. Better than nothing, I guess. Anti-rattle clip. And now this has to come. Let's clean that off. This is the wear sensor thing here. Put it in its clip. Saved the wheel well liners from the e55 because I thought one was torn, but apparently not. All right. Brakes. Let's Maybe hit this with some degreaser. All right. So brakes, springs. I've got the e55 sway bar on already. Shocks. So I got a choice here, which I've already made because I did the other side. I've got Bilstein Sports that I put on the e55 after I bought it. And I've got the original Bilstein AMG shocks, which is what I'm going with. I did the Bilstein Sports, and I did not like the way the car was just. I shouldn't say I didn't like. It was just really firm, and I'm not going for that because I'm keeping the self leveling in the rear of this car. At least that's the plan for now. So the rear is going to be softer. So I don't want super stiff on the front and soft on the rear. So if anybody has a 210 and they want some Bilstein Sports, I got a full set for a sedan. This I'd win in really easily. So let's see if this does too. I don't know why I had such a hard time getting that other shock out. Yeah. I don't know how this goes in so easy, but it's a pain in the ass to get out, but whatever. Again, this is a 16. Wood there. There's a 16. And I'm going to need the extension. Oh, and there's a grommet for the brake hose. Push that in place. Now, the kind of pain part is I've got to jack up the spindle, jack this up to get the shock through the hole up here. Move all this other stuff out of the way that we don't need anymore. Put it on our mobile workshop table. And then you really can't get the shock torque down until the car is on the ground because the stud doesn't come up through the hole far enough. And before I could do that, we gotta bleed the brakes. Oh, there's that nut. Okay. Much quicker project than the engine swap was, which is nice. I've been enjoying driving this thing. Need to address the exhaust. Yeah, we're starting to come off the jack stand now. Oops, wrong thing. Okay. So return tomorrow to bleed these, and then we'll see how it goes. See how it drives. All right, well, here we are a day later. It's Sunday. Front end is done, bled the brakes today, um, and brought the car back home. It's driving well. The brakes feel a lot better than the old ones did. The front end is definitely firmer than it was, which is nice. I'll give it a good road test when I go to work out on Marsh Creek and my commute route, which is fairly entertaining. But so far, pretty happy. I'm surprised the front end is not sitting much different than it was with the stock springs. So these are the e55 springs with the thin spring pad, and it seems to be right around where it was with the stock e320 springs, but it's definitely firmer. And the AMG Bilsteins feel much better. Next up, we'll be working on the rear end. I need to do a little research and figure out what I'm going to do there. But yeah, and I also gave it a quick spray wax while I was over at the shop. So it looks as nice as it ever has. Still needs a full detailing and a lot of other things, but anyway, it's coming along. It's driving great, and thanks for following along, and we'll hopefully see you in another week or so.